I never imagined that 8 months of silence could weigh as much as a loaded bar on the bench press. My name is Rafael. I'm 28, a graphic designer. And I spent the last few months carrying a secret that threatened to tear me apart every time I looked into his eyes. Lucas Henrique Cardoso, personal trainer. 6'1" of pure confidence, broad shoulders, short beard. Those dark eyes that held contact for 3 seconds longer than normal. 3 seconds that, to me, felt like an eternity. And here's the truth I hid from everyone, including myself for a long time. I was in love with my best gym buddy. And it wasn't a healthy admiration. It was the kind of feeling that made me wake up at 5:30 in the morning just to ensure we'd be there at the same time. The kind that made me fidget with my bag strap when he walked up, because my hands had nowhere to go and my brain had checked out. The kind that turned every morning Rafa into fuel for the entire day. There is a specific moment that divides everything into a before and after in my life. It was 8 months ago. I was bench pressing, alone as always, struggling with the last rep of the third set. That moment when your arms start to shake and you don't know if you can lift the bar back onto the rack. And then I felt it. 2 firm, steady hands grabbing the bar and helping with the final movement. You needed a spot. Nice form, brother. I looked up, and there he was, Lucas. The fluorescent gym light created a sort of halo behind his head. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's exactly how I remember it. He smiled. It wasn't a smile of pity or superiority. It was genuine. Warm. And when he put his hand on my right shoulder to help me sit up, I knew. I knew I was screwed. "Thanks," I said, my voice rougher than intended. "No problem. That's what spotters are for, yeah? You training alone today?" That's how it started. Simple. Normal. The kind of thing that spirals into chaos before you realize it. 2 weeks later, we were timing our workouts to match. A month later, we're texting outside the gym work stuff, life stuff, whatever was trending that week. 3 months in, Lucas was the first person I'd scan for when I walked through those doors. And 6 months later, I was completely lost. Because at some point between leg day and locker room chats, that thing stopped being friendship and became something else. At least for me. The question that consumed me, the question that stole my sleep and turned every interaction into an obsessive analysis was, did he feel the same? Or was I projecting my own desires onto a perfectly normal friendship between 2 guys who worked out together? Because there were signs, you know? Small ones, subtle. The kind of thing that could be read 2 completely different ways, depending on how much you wanted to believe. The way he held my gaze in the mirror during squat sets. 1 second. 2. 3. 4. And then he'd look away, but with that half smile on his lips. His hand on my shoulder when he greeted me. The warm palm through my t-shirt. Did it last a little longer than normal? Or was it just in my head? And then there were the comments. Man, the comments. "You're getting seriously strong, man. Impressive. Your shoulders are coming in nice. You're putting in real work, I see it. I like working out with you. You've got real focus." Was it a friend's compliment? Was it professional recognition from a personal trainer? Or was it something else? I didn't know. And that killed me. Because what I feared most in the world wasn't discovering that he felt nothing. What I feared most was that he would notice. That he would realize the way I looked at him when I thought he wasn't looking. That he would feel the tension in my body when we got too close during an exercise. That he would read in my pauses, in my silences, in my nervous laughter. Everything that I was desperately trying to hide. Because if he realized and didn't feel the same, I would lose the friendship. And that friendship had become the best part of my days. So I kept it in. Swallowed it. Buried it all as deep as I could. I'd laugh when he talked about the girls flirting with him at the gym. I'd offer opinions when he asked about some woman he'd met. I played the role of the perfect friend, even while dying inside. But today was different. Today, something changed. We were in the middle of a back workout, doing bent-over rows. I was adjusting my grip on the bar when I felt his presence behind me. Not just close. Really close. I could feel the heat of his body inches from my back. "Let me fix your form," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. Then he placed his hand. Not on my shoulder like usual. This time, it was on my lower back. Palm flat, firm, warm through my thin workout shirt. And it slid down. Just slightly. Enough to completely scramble my brain. "Engage your back here," he said, pressing gently. "You feel that?" I felt it. God, how I felt it. But it wasn't the posture. It was his hand. It was the proximity. It was the scent of clean sweat and deodorant that reached me. It was the fact that he hadn't pulled away yet. Normally, he would correct and step back. This time, he stayed there. For 2 seconds longer. For 3. For 5. "Sorry," I managed to say, my voice coming out strange. He pulled away. Finally. But when I looked at the wall mirror, seeking some distraction, I caught him looking at me. And he didn't look away. He just held my gaze longer than he should have. Serious. Intense. As if he were trying to read something on my face. Then he smiled. That usual half smile. And went back to his own workout. I finished the set on autopilot. My head was somewhere else entirely. Because that was different. It was deliberate, wasn't it? The session went on. But the tension remained. Every time we got close for a new exercise, I felt it. An electricity in the air. An acute awareness of his every movement. And he seemed different too. More attentive. More present. Or again, was it just me wanting to believe it? During the pull-down, he stood right beside me, watching my form. Usually he stood in front or behind to check the pulling angle. This time he positioned himself at my side. So close our shoulders almost touched. And when I finished the set and let go of the bar, he didn't move. He stayed there. Still. Close. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I answered too quickly. "Why?" "I don't know. You seem tense." Tense. Obviously I was tense. How could I not be? But what was I supposed to tell him? "I'm tense because every second around you I'm fighting not to cross a line that would blow everything up." "It's work," I lied. "Annoying client." He nodded, but didn't seem convinced. Those dark eyes studied me for another second before he gave my shoulder a light tap. "If you want to vent later, I'm here." Classic Lucas. Always looking out. Making it seem so effortless, so casual, while I was burning up inside. The workout came to an end. I was packing my stuff into my backpack, trying to control my breathing, trying to look normal, when he appeared at my side. He'd already changed his sweat-soaked shirt for a clean one. His hair still wet from splashing water on his face. He always did that. Said it helped him cool down after training. "So, heading straight home?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I have an online meeting in an hour." "Oh." There was a pause. Not a normal pause. A loaded pause. Heavy. As if he were thinking of saying something but didn't quite know how. And then he said it. "Let's go to the locker room." It wasn't a question. It was almost an order? No, not quite that. It was an invitation, but it carried a different weight. An intention I couldn't decipher. "I already showered at home this morning," I started. "I'm just gonna..." "It's not for a shower." He cut me off. And smiled. But it wasn't his usual smile. It was something new. Something I'd never seen on his lips before. "I just want to show you something." My heart raced. Why the hell was my heart racing like that? It was just the locker room. We'd stood there talking dozens of times before. Why did today feel different? "Show me what?" I asked, trying to sound casual, as if my mind wasn't exploding with 1,000 possibilities at once. "Come with me and you'll see." He didn't wait for an answer. He just turned and started walking toward the hallway leading to the locker rooms. And I, as always, followed him. Because I always followed. Because no matter how many times I promised myself to keep my distance, set boundaries, protect my heart, when Lucas called, I went. I always went. The locker room was almost empty. Late afternoon on a weekday. Most people had already left. Just one or two guys changing at the far lockers. Lucas went straight to the back corner near the showers, where we always left our things. He stopped and turned to me. And for the first time since we met, I saw something different in his look. It wasn't the usual confidence. It wasn't the calm of a personal trainer who knew exactly what he was doing. It was nervousness, hesitation, and that scared me more than anything. "Rafa," he began, and my name in his mouth sounded different, more intimate, more loaded. I was thinking, how long have we been training together? 8 months, I replied, as if I didn't know exactly, as if I hadn't counted every week. Yeah, 8 months. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as nervousness. Lucas nervous. That was new. And man, I know we've made incredible progress. But I was thinking, are you holding back a little? Like, not pushing yourself as far as you could? I blinked. Holding back? What was he talking about? What do you mean? Like, sizing up, he said, and his eyes locked onto mine. Intense. I want to compare our bodies. See where you're killing it, where you've still got room to grow. It's something I do with some clients, but it's gotta be real. It's gotta be. Hands-on. Close. That word echoed in my head. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. My whole body was on high alert. Every instinct screaming that this was dangerous. That I should make up an excuse, get out of there, keep the safe distance I'd so carefully built over 8 months. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was, okay, let's do it. And by the way his eyes shined, by the way the corner of his mouth curved into that half smile I knew so well, I knew I had just crossed an invisible line, and there was no turning back. Great, he said, his voice lower now, because I want to see how much you've really progressed, Rafa. And the way he said my name, with that tone I couldn't tell if it was professional or something completely different, knocked all the air out of my lungs. He took a step forward, closer. I could see every detail of his face now. The small scar above his left eyebrow, the fine lines around his eyes when he smiled, the way his lips curved. Take off your shirt, he said, and my world stopped. I should have said no. I should have laughed it off, made it a joke, played it like typical gym banter comparing gains, measuring arms, the Instagram flex thing, normal guy stuff. But that's not what came out of my mouth. Okay, I said, and my voice came out hoarse, lower than usual. Lucas smiled. It wasn't his usual smile. That easy, laid-back smile of someone who just finished a heavy set and is proud of the effort. This one was different, slower, more intentional. Come on, he said, nodding towards the back of the locker room. There's more space over there. More space. As if space were the problem. I followed. Of course I did. Because I always followed. 8 months of this. Tailoring my routine to his schedule, matching his sets, rests, even our post-workout shakes. I'd become his shadow. The worst part? I didn't mind. The locker room was almost empty. It was that weird time between the late afternoon crowd and the evening crew. 2, maybe 3 people at most. An older guy putting stuff in his locker, another one already leaving, no one paying attention to us. Lucas stopped near the showers, in that corner where the light was a little dimmer, where the sound of the main locker area didn't quite reach. It was as if the gym had forgotten about that part, abandoned it in a corner, away from eyes, away from the noise. Perfect for what? I didn't want to think about it. He turned to me, and again that look, direct, intense, the way he always looked when he was teaching me a new exercise, correcting my posture, holding my shoulder to adjust my grip on the bar. But now there was no bar between us, just air and tension. Take off your shirt, he repeated. My heart was already racing before. Now it felt like it was going to explode. I could hear the sound of my own blood pounding in my temples. That dull buzzing that comes when you're too nervous, when the world gets kind of muffled, and the only thing you can focus on is the person in front of you. I raised my hands, grabbed the hem of my shirt, hesitated. "Rafa," Lucas said, and his voice was soft now, almost gentle. "Relax, it's just muscle. It's just muscle, of course, just muscle, no big deal. We did this all the time, right? Saw each other shirtless in the locker room, changed clothes, showered, normal, everyday stuff. So why was my hand shaking?" I pulled the shirt over my head. The sweat-damp fabric stuck to my skin a bit before coming loose. I tossed it onto the bench next to me. I stood there, bare-chested, trying to control my breathing. Lucas looked at me. It wasn't quick. It wasn't casual. It was slow. His eyes traveled down my neck, shoulders, chest, abs. Went back up, locked onto my eyes again. And this time, he didn't look away. "You've improved a lot," he said. His voice came out deeper. "Seriously, Rafa, you look impressive." Impressive. The word hung in the air, heavy, loaded with something I couldn't name. Or maybe I could. Maybe I just didn't want to admit it. "Thanks," I murmured, because that was what I was expected to say, what any normal person would say. But I didn't feel normal. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like he could see more than muscles, like he was looking inside me. "My turn," Lucas said. And before I could process it, he pulled off his own shirt. I had seen Lucas shirtless before, obviously, dozens of times. He was a trainer, worked out shirtless half the time when training alone, posted photos on Instagram, wore swim trunks at the gym pool. It wasn't new. But there, in that isolated corner of the locker room, with him less than a meter away, with that dim light hitting his tanned skin, his defined muscles, the drops of sweat still running down his abs. It was different. Everything was different. "Compare," he said, taking a step forward, closer. Now I could feel the heat of his body. That heat that comes after a heavy workout, when the body is still burning calories, pumping blood, alive, intense. I raised my hand, hesitated again. "You can touch," Lucas said, and his voice came out almost like a whisper. "How are you going to compare without feeling?" Feeling. I touched my fingertips to his shoulder. His skin was hot, damp. I could feel the muscle underneath, dense, solid. I slid my hand down to his biceps, squeezed lightly. "See?" he said. "You're almost at the same level." Almost. I couldn't speak, couldn't think straight. My brain had shut down. Or maybe it had turned on too much, processing every detail, every sensation, every damn second of it. Lucas raised his own hand, touched my shoulder, mirrored my gesture, fingers sliding over my biceps, squeezing, testing. "Yeah," he murmured. "You're almost there." His hand stayed there, on my arm, longer than it needed to, and I didn't pull away. I stood there, chest rising and falling too fast, heart hammering, eyes locked on his. And Lucas was looking back at me, that look I knew so well, but now it seemed to carry a new weight, an unasked question. How long did we stay like that? I don't know. Seconds. Maybe a whole minute. Time had stopped making sense, until a noise came from outside. Someone slamming a locker door. Laughing. Talking loudly. Lucas's hand dropped. He took a step back. Broke eye contact. Ran his hand through his hair. A gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he was thinking, processing something. "Shoulders," he said, and his voice snapped back to professional. Controlled. Like nothing had just happened. But it had. Something had changed in that locker room. Or maybe it had always been there, hidden, waiting for the right moment to surface. I turned my back when he asked. I felt his hands on my shoulders, firm, professional, assessing the musculature, testing the symmetry. But that wasn't all it was. it couldn't be just that. Because when his fingers slid down the back of my neck, when his breath got too close to my ear, when I felt that shiver running down my spine, this wasn't a muscle assessment. This was something else. "You're tense," Lucas said softly. So quiet I almost didn't hear. "Relax, Rafa. Relax." Right, as if that were possible. I closed my eyes, tried to breathe, tried to pretend this was normal, that I wasn't feeling what I was feeling, that my body wasn't reacting in a way I couldn't control. His hands moved to my traps, squeezed, massaged, and that's when I realized this was no longer a comparison. This was touch, real, intentional. I opened my eyes, turned my head slightly, just enough to see Lucas's reflection in the foggy mirror on the wall. He was looking at me, not at my shoulders, at my face. And his expression. God, it was the same one I felt inside. That mix of fear and desire, of wanting and being afraid to want, of knowing that if we crossed this line, there would be no turning back. I turned to face him. We stood there, motionless, less than 2 feet apart, 2 shirtless guys in an empty locker room, pretending we were comparing muscles, pretending this was innocent, but it wasn't, and we knew it. "Lucas," I started, and my voice cracked. I swallowed hard, tried again. "What are we doing?" He didn't answer immediately, just looked at me. That gaze that pierced through, that saw beneath the surface. And then, slowly, he took a step forward, closer, too close. "I don't know," he said, and for the first time since I'd known Lucas, he seemed uncertain, vulnerable. "But I want to find out." The world stopped. Everything stopped. There was only him, me, and that tiny space between our bodies that was getting smaller and smaller. "What about you?" Lucas asked, his voice husky, eyes fixed on mine. "Do you want to?" I should have said no. I should have laughed. Walked out, gone back to the safety of our friendship, where everything was simple, where I didn't have to confront this. But I was tired of running, tired of pretending, tired of carrying this weight alone. "Yes," I whispered, and it was like the dam had broken. Lucas smiled. It wasn't his gym smile. It was something else. Truer, more dangerous. "Then come with me," he said. He took my hand. It wasn't a casual gesture. It wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. And I let him. He pulled me deeper into the corner, where the light barely reached, where nobody could see us. My heart was pounding. My brain was screaming warnings, red flags, consequences. But my body followed. Because for the first time in 8 months, I wasn't pretending anymore. Lucas stopped, let go of me, stood in front of me, so close I could count every drop of sweat on his forehead. "I needed to be sure," he said. His voice trembled a little. "I needed to know if I was imagining it, if it was just all in my head." All in his head. He thought it was all in his head. "It's not," I said, and my voice came out steady for the first time. "It's not in your head." Lucas closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and when he opened them again, there was something different there. Relief, fear, hope, all mixed together. "There are more people out there," he said, looking over my shoulder. "But the locker room will clear out soon. We can talk properly, without rushing." Talk. Was that really what we were doing? Or was that just what we were telling ourselves to justify staying there, alone, exposed, on the edge of something neither of us could put a name to? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out. "Okay," I said. Lucas nodded, took a step back, took a deep breath, tried to regain his composure. But when our eyes met again, I saw it. He was just as lost as I was, and in some strange way, that made me less scared. Because for the first time, I wasn't alone in this. That silence in the locker room shouldn't have had weight. It was just silence. A pause. A breathing space between two friends who had just trained hard and were now there, side by side, comparing progress. But it had weight. And Lucas knew it just as much as I did. We stood there for a few seconds that felt like hours. Me looking at my own arm. Him looking at his. The proximity between our bodies was impossible to ignore. I could feel the heat radiating from him. I could hear his breath adjusting, trying to return to normal after the workout. Or maybe it wasn't just because of the workout. Lucas gave a half smile. That smile he always gave when he was about to say something but was still deciding whether he should. "You've improved a lot over the last few months, Rafa," he said, his voice a little lower than usual. I laughed nervously, tried to look casual. "Yeah, you're a good trainer. It's not just that." He turned his body slightly toward me. Now we were almost facing each other. "You have dedication. Focus. I see that." My heart started racing again, because there was something about the way he was speaking, something about the way he was looking at me. It wasn't the way a personal trainer looks at a client. It wasn't the way a friend looks at another friend. It was something more. "Thanks," I said, and my voice came out weaker than I would have liked. Lucas didn't look away. He stood there, staring at me, as if searching for something in my face, as if trying to read something I wasn't saying. And then he spoke. "You've been holding a lot back, haven't you?" My stomach flipped. "What do you mean?" I tried to laugh again, but it sounded artificial, forced. "Rafa." The way he said my name sent chills down my spine, soft, almost intimate. "I'm not dumb, man." Silence again. But this time it was different. This silence had an electric quality, as if the air between us was charged with something about to explode. I had no idea what to say, whether to deny it, make a joke, bolt, and pretend this never happened. But I couldn't move. Lucas took a step closer. Now we were so close I could see the small beads of sweat still on his forehead. I could see the way his chest rose and fell with every breath. I could feel his presence completely invading my personal space in a way that should have been uncomfortable. But it wasn't. It was the opposite. "You think I haven't noticed?" His voice was almost a whisper now, the way you look away when we catch each other's eyes in the mirror during exercises. The way you pull back when I get too close. The way you get nervous when I touch your shoulder. My God, he knew. He always knew. My throat was dry. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. All the words I could say vanished from my mind. "Lucas, you don't need to explain." He cut me off, but gently. "You just need to be honest." Honest. How could I be honest when honesty meant risking everything? When it meant admitting something I could barely admit to myself? But the way he was looking at me in that moment, it was like he already knew the answer. Like he was just waiting for me to have the courage to say it out loud. "I don't know what you want me to say," I murmured. Finally. Lucas sighed. It wasn't a sigh of frustration. It was a sigh of relief? Resignation? "I want you to stop pretending," he said. And then he raised his hand. For a second I thought he was going to touch me, that he was going to put his hand on my face, or my shoulder, or anywhere that would make all this even more impossible to deny. But he didn't. Instead, he let his hand drop back to his side, took a deep breath, and then looked at the locker room door. My heart sank. He was leaving. I had ruined everything. I had let the silence speak too loudly, and now he was giving up. But then Lucas looked back at me, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't rejection. It was determination. "Wait here a second," he said. And before I could ask why, he turned and walked toward the door. I stood frozen, watching as he approached the locker room entrance. My mind was racing. What was he doing? Why was he going over there? Was he leaving? Was he going to call someone? And then I heard it, the sound of the lock turning. Click. Lucas had locked the locker room door. My whole body went rigid. My brain went into full panic mode. Why? Why did he lock the door? Lucas stood there for a moment, his back to me, his hand still on the handle. I could see the tension in his shoulders. I could see the way he was taking deep breaths, as if preparing himself for something. And then he turned around. When our eyes met again, everything changed. Because now, there was nowhere left to run. No more excuses. No more pretending this was just a regular friendship, that the tension between us was my imagination, that the last 8 months had been just about training and casual chat. The door was locked, and we both knew exactly what that meant. Lucas started walking back toward me, slowly, deliberately. Each step seemed to echo in the heavy silence of the locker room. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. I wanted to do anything to break the intensity of that moment. But at the same time, I didn't. Because for the first time in 8 months, I wasn't alone in that fear. Lucas was scared too. I could see it in his eyes, in the way he was breathing, in the way he had locked that door not to trap me but to give us privacy, to give us a space where we could finally stop pretending. He stopped a few feet away from me. "Rafa," he said, and my name left his mouth like a confession. "We need to talk about what's really happening here." And I knew in that moment there was no turning back. Everything I had held back, everything I had hidden, everything I had denied, was about to come to light. And in a way that was terrifying and liberating at the same time, I was ready. My heart stopped. Not poetically, not dramatically. It simply stopped, as if my whole body had forgotten how to function. "We need to talk about what's really happening here." Lucas's words echoed in the empty locker room like a sentence, like a confession, like the end of everything I had built over the last 8 months to protect myself. I looked at the locked door behind him. I looked at his hands, still holding the key. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in months, I couldn't look away. "Lucas, My voice cracked. "I don't know what you're talking about." It was a terrible lie. So obvious it was pathetic. But it was my last line of defense, my last wall. If I admitted this now, if I dropped my guard, there was no going back. And I wasn't sure I was ready to cross that line. Lucas took a step toward me. Just one. But it was enough to make the air between us even heavier, more charged, more impossible to ignore. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," he said. And there was no anger in his voice. There was something worse. There was certainty. There was a devastating softness that made me realize he wasn't attacking. He was disarming. And I had no defense against that. "Rafa," he continued, lower now, almost too intimate for the space that still existed between us. "I notice everything, every look, every time you pull away when we get too close, every time you avert your eyes when I hold your gaze for more than 3 seconds. My stomach turned. He had noticed. Everything. Every pathetic little attempt I made to hide what I felt. Every moment I thought I had been discreet. Every breath I held. Every word I swallowed. Every stupid excuse I made up to leave early or cancel practice when the tension got unbearable. He had seen it all. And somehow, that was worse than any rejection. Worse than any joke. Worse than any silence. Because it meant I had been transparent the whole time. That my secret had never really been a secret. That I had spent 8 months hiding from something that was already exposed. "I didn't want you to know," I said, and my voice shook. It wasn't a lie anymore. It was a confession. It was the start of everything crumbling. "Why?" His question was so simple. So direct. So devastatingly honest. And I had no answer. Or rather, I had 1,000 answers, all of them pathetic and true at the same time. Because I was terrified of losing you. Because I didn't know if it was mutual. Because this friendship meant everything and I couldn't risk destroying it. Because I couldn't handle what I was feeling. because saying it out loud meant everything was on the line, because I was a coward. But what I actually said was, because it would change everything. Lucas stood in silence for 3 seconds. 4. 5. And then he took another step toward me. Now we were so close I could feel his body heat. I could see the small beads of sweat still drying on his neck. I could count every hair in his beard. I could hear his breathing a little faster than it should be. And for the first time, I wondered if he was nervous too. What if it already has? I blinked. It took my brain 3 whole heartbeats to process what he had just said. What? What if it already has, Rafa? Lucas repeated, and now there was something different in his voice. Something vulnerable. Something I had never heard before. What if we're already past the point where we can pretend it's just friendship? My breath hitched. This couldn't be happening. It couldn't. It was impossible. It was a delusion. It was wishful thinking. It was my brain making things up because I had spent too much time wishing for exactly this. But Lucas kept talking, and every word was too real, too raw, too true to be a product of my imagination. "You think I don't notice how you look at me?" he said, and there was an intensity in his eyes that pinned me in place, that stopped me from breathing. "You think I don't feel you tense up every time we touch? You think I don't see the way you look away when I hold your gaze too long?" He leaned in closer, and I couldn't move. I couldn't retreat. I couldn't do anything but stand there, paralyzed, while he destroyed every defense I had built. "You think I don't notice, Rafa? That I'm blind?" My voice faltered. "I thought you didn't care." "Don't care?" Lucas let out a short, bitter laugh that sounded like frustration breaking through. "Rafa, I locked that door because I can't pretend anymore. That I don't feel this." The world stopped. It didn't slow down. It didn't get blurry. It literally stopped spinning. I looked at him. Really looked, for the first time without trying to hide what I was feeling, and what I saw tore me in two. Fear, hope, vulnerability. The very things I'd been carrying alone for 8 months, reflected in Lucas's eyes like a mirror. He was scared too. He was hopeful too. He was vulnerable too. And suddenly, I realized, it wasn't just me this whole time. It wasn't one-sided. It wasn't just a fantasy. He felt it too. "Lucas," I whispered, and this time there was no hiding the tremor in my voice, the raw emotion rising in my throat, the devastating relief mixed with absolute terror. "You need to tell me," he interrupted, his voice low and urgent. "Because I'm tired of guessing. I'm tired of interpreting. I'm tired of waiting for you to give me a clear sign." He was close enough that I could feel his breath. "Tell me, Rafa. I need to hear it." And there, in that empty locker room, with the door locked, no escape route, and no excuse left to hide, I knew the moment had come. The moment I'd avoided, the moment I'd feared, the moment I'd craved with every fiber of my being. There was no running away anymore, no more pretending, no more lying. I took a deep breath, and the air felt like it cut my lungs like glass. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in 8 months, I didn't look away. And I said it. "You're not imagining things." The words came out broken, trembling, but true. So true it hurt. "You're not imagining it, Lucas. My voice cracked, and I had to pause, had to summon every ounce of courage I had. "I feel something for you. Something real, and I can't keep pretending it doesn't exist anymore." Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked hard, refusing to let them fall. I try. Every single day. I tell myself it's just friendship, that I'm reading into things, that I'm imagining this. My voice was cracking now, each word ripped from somewhere deep inside. But I can't do it anymore, Lucas. I can't keep lying. I paused, my chest heaving with ragged breaths. "I can't pretend I don't wait for you at the gym. That you don't make my whole day better. That I don't remember every word you say. That I don't. My voice completely gave out. I had to breathe before continuing. That you're not all I think about when I should be focused on literally anything else. Silence. Lucas didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. And for a terrifying moment, I thought I just ruined everything. But then I saw it. His eyes were glistening, not with tears, with something deeper. Something I couldn't name but recognized because it was the exact same thing I felt. Rafa, he whispered, and my name on his lips sounded like a pardon and a promise all at once. And then he said the words I never thought I'd hear. Me too. My heart exploded. Me too, he said again, stronger now, each word loaded with truth. I've felt this for months. Finding reasons to see you, be next to you, touch you in ways that seemed random but weren't. He took another step, closing the space between us until there was nothing left. Nothing but charged air and truths finally spoken. I was afraid you'd think I was just screwing around, that I was some random guy trying to take advantage. His voice was rough, raw, with a vulnerability I'd never heard before. I was terrified of screwing this up, of losing you. Tears finally escaped, rolling down my face without permission. I was so scared of losing you that I'd rather be stuck in this hell where we pretended to be just friends, dying inside every time you left. He raised his hand slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't. His fingers touched my face, wiping away a tear with his thumb. The touch was so soft, so careful, so completely different from any casual contact we'd ever had, that I almost fell apart right there. But I can't take it anymore, he whispered. I can't stand pretending you don't matter more than you should. That I don't want more than what we have. That I don't. He paused, his eyes searching mine, as if asking permission for what came next. That I'm not completely in love with you. And with those words, everything inside me that had been broken for the last 8 months finally clicked into place. I didn't answer with words, because there weren't enough words. There wasn't enough vocabulary in the entire universe to express the devastating relief, the terrifying joy, the exposed vulnerability I was feeling in that moment. So I just let more tears fall, and for the first time in 8 months, I wasn't ashamed of them. Lucas pulled me closer, his other hand finding my shoulder, holding me like I was something precious, something fragile, something he was afraid to break. We'll figure this out, he murmured against my hair. I don't know how. I don't know what happens now, but we'll figure it out. And I believed him. Because for the first time since this all started, I wasn't alone in the fear anymore. For the first time, the weight I carried wasn't just mine. For the first time, I could breathe. Breathe. It was all I could do in that moment. Breathing and feeling the weight of Lucas's arms around me, as if he were holding me together so I wouldn't completely fall apart. And maybe that was exactly what he was doing. Because for the first time in 8 months, I had said out loud what I'd been carrying in silence. I had let out the fear, the desire, the confusion, and the world hadn't ended. Lucas hadn't run away. He hadn't pushed me away. He was there, holding me. But the silence that followed my confession was heavy in a different way. It wasn't the silence of tension, of things left unsaid anymore. It was the silence of waiting, of exposed vulnerability, of the question I still didn't have the courage to ask. What now? I could feel his chest rising and falling against my back, his warm breath on my hair. I could feel the way his fingers squeezed my shoulder, as if he were trying to tell me something without words. But I needed the words. I needed to hear him say something, anything that would tell me if I had just destroyed the only thing that mattered to me. Because despite everything he had said, despite the way he was holding me, a part of me was still terrified. I still thought maybe this was pity. Maybe it was just Lucas being kind, being the decent guy I always knew he was, trying to comfort me after I had dumped all my emotional baggage on him. What if he was just trying to find a way to let me go without hurting me? I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice before speaking. I pulled away a little, just enough to turn and look at him. His arms dropped, but his hands stayed close, as if he wasn't ready to let me go completely. Lucas looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Serious, intense, but vulnerable, unlike anything I had ever seen in him. And I needed to know. I needed to understand what was going on inside his head. Lucas. My voice came out low, almost a whisper. You don't have to. I don't want you to feel obligated to say something just because I did. I don't want you to pity me. He frowned immediately, as if my words had been a punch. Pity? His voice came out rough, almost offended. Rafa, do you think I'm here because I pity you? I didn't answer. I didn't know how to answer. Because part of me thought so. Part of me thought he was being the amazing friend he'd always been, trying to help me process a confession he never asked to hear. Lucas ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I knew well. He took a step back, putting some distance between us, and for a second I thought he was leaving. I thought I had pushed too hard. But then he stopped. He took a deep breath, and when he spoke again, his voice was different, lower, more exposed. Rafa, I'm not good at this, at talking about feelings, at being vulnerable like this. He looked at the floor, his shoulders tense, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. But you just laid all this out in front of me and I can't let you think this is just pity. Because it's not. My heart raced, froze, crumbled, all at the same time. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Lucas looked up at me, and for the first time since all this started, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Not the kind of fear I felt, the fear of rejection. It was the fear of being misunderstood, of being seen as something he wasn't. I've spent the last few months trying to understand what was happening, he continued, his voice trembling now. Trying to figure out if I was imagining things, if I was reading signs that weren't there. He took a step toward me, his eyes fixed on mine, because every time we trained together, every time I touched you, every time you looked at me like that, I kept thinking, does he feel this too? Or am I just another idiot confusing friendship with something else? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I couldn't process it. Lucas. Lucas too? I was scared of ruining everything, he admitted, his voice almost breaking. I was scared that if I said something, if I did something, you'd think I was just, I don't know, taking advantage. That I was using you somehow. He stopped right in front of me now, so close I could see every detail of his face, the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes shone under the dim light of the locker room, the way he was fighting to put all this into words. I didn't want you to think I was messing with you, Lucas said, and the sincerity in his voice broke me completely. Because this, what I feel, isn't a game, Rafa. Tears burned in my eyes and I blinked fast, trying to hold them back. But it was impossible. Because he was saying everything I had been terrified to admit I wanted to hear. You have no idea how many times I almost said something, Lucas continued, his voice low, husky. How many times I almost touched you in a way that had nothing to do with training. How many times I stared at you in the mirror and thought, does he realize? He gave a short, humorless laugh. I was terrified, man. Terrified of losing you. Because if I said something and you didn't feel the same, how were we going to stay friends after that? My chest tightened. Because I had thought exactly the same thing. So many times. So many nights. And then today, Lucas took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. When I asked to compare muscles, I knew I was pushing it. I knew. But I couldn't stand pretending anymore, Rafa. I needed to do something. I needed to see if there was any chance you felt this too. He looked at me, and for the first time since all this started, I saw him completely exposed, completely vulnerable, completely mine. So no, Lucas said, his voice firm now, even though it was trembling. It's not pity. It was never pity. I'm here because I want to be here. Because I feel this too. And I'm tired of pretending I don't. And it was as if the whole world had stopped. As if all the air in the locker room had been sucked out at once. Because I had spent 8 months thinking I was the only one. Thinking it was all in my head. Thinking I was alone in this madness. And I wasn't. He felt it too. He was afraid too. He was holding back too. We were both holding back at the same time, for fear of the same thing. Lucas. My voice came out broken, full of everything I couldn't put into words. He took a step closer. And now we were so close I could feel his heat, his scent, every breath. I was afraid you'd think I was just another gym guy hitting on you, he admitted. And for the first time since I met Lucas, I saw tears in his eyes. That I was just, I don't know, an idiot wanting something casual. But it's not that, Rafa. It never was. He raised his hand, hesitant, and touched my face. Slowly. Carefully. As if I were something precious. I didn't want to lose you, he whispered. I'd rather have you as a friend and carry this in silence than risk it and lose everything. I closed my eyes, feeling his touch burn on my skin, feeling everything I had held back for so long finally find a safe place to exist. Me too, I whispered back. I thought the same thing too. When I opened my eyes, Lucas was looking at me with an intensity that left me breathless. We're a disaster, aren't we? He said, and for the first time in all this, he smiled. A small, shaky smile, but real. A complete disaster, I agreed, and felt my own tears finally falling. But this time, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief, of liberation, of finally being able to breathe. Lucas wiped a tear from my face with his thumb, the touch so gentle it almost undid me again. Sorry for locking the door like that, he said, his voice low. I know it was kinda intense. It was, I admitted. But it was what needed to happen, because I never would have had the courage to do this alone. Me neither, he confessed. We stood there, in that silence full of everything that had finally been said. And for the first time in 8 months, I no longer felt that crushing weight on my chest. I no longer felt like I was carrying a secret that was going to destroy me. Because now he knew, and he felt the same. What now? I asked, because that was the question that still needed an answer. Lucas took a deep breath, his hand still on my face. Now. We figure this out together, he said. Because I don't know what comes next, Rafa. I don't know how we make this work. But I know I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to hold back anymore. Me neither, I said. And for the first time since all this started, I truly believed it. Because it wasn't just me anymore. It wasn't just my fear, my doubt, my confusion. It was ours. And somehow that made everything less scary. Lucas rested his forehead against mine, closing his eyes. We'll go slow, okay? He murmured. No rush, no pressure. Just us. Okay, I whispered back. And in that moment, with his forehead against mine, with his hand still on my face, with his heart beating as fast as mine, I finally understood what it meant to be seen, to be accepted, to be loved back. It wasn't about grand gestures or perfect words. It was about this. About two terrified, vulnerable, confused people deciding it was worth trying. Deciding it was worth the risk, because what we had was too real to keep hiding. And even if the future was still a big question mark, even if there were 1,000 things we still needed to figure out, in that moment, in that locked locker room, with the whole world outside, we had chosen each other, and for now that was all that mattered. But choosing is one thing. Living with the choice is something completely different. We sat there, on that worn wooden bench, both processing what had just happened. Lucas was still holding my hand, but now the touch wasn't urgent. It was gentle, almost cautious, as if we had discovered something too fragile to hold too tight. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was different. It had a strange, almost liquid quality, as if everything we had said was still floating between us, settling, finding its place. I looked at him, really looked. Not in that furtive way I had spent 8 months doing, not looking away when he caught me. Just looked. and he looked back at me. That's when reality started to sink in. We had actually done it. We'd put everything out there. We'd crossed that line I swore I'd never cross. And now what? I felt my chest tighten again, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was something more complicated. A mix of relief and terror, hope and doubt, all together, all at once. The voice came out before I could think straight. We're actually doing this? Lucas didn't answer immediately. He dropped my hand, ran his fingers through his hair, stared at the floor. For a moment, I thought he was going to shut it down, say it was a mistake, tell me we should go back to how things were. But when he looked up again, what I saw there wasn't regret. It was the same thing I was feeling. Fear, hope, confusion, all mixed together. He took a deep breath. I don't know how to go back to pretending, Rafa. Can you? The question hit me hard. No, I couldn't. Not even close. How could I look at him during workouts without hearing his voice confessing? How could I walk into that locker room again and pretend nothing happened? How could I go back to just being his friend? I shook my head. I can't. Lucas let out a soft, almost silent laugh. It wasn't happy. It was that laugh that escapes when you're between tears and laughter and can't decide which. So we're doing this, aren't we? He said it as if he were coming to an obvious conclusion. As if we had spent the last 20 minutes solving a math problem and finally found the answer. But there was nothing obvious about it. What if this blows up in our faces? I asked, not even trying to hide the fear. What if we try and it doesn't work? What if we destroy the friendship? Then we handle it, Lucas interrupted, but gentle, direct. But if we don't try, Rafa, it'll destroy us anyway. You know it. He was right. Because I already knew what it was like to live in hiding. I had already spent 8 months carrying that weight alone, and every day it got heavier. If I tried to go back to pretending now, after everything we had said, I would destroy myself inside. And him too. Slow then? I asked, needing some kind of promise, some direction in this completely uncharted territory. Lucas nodded. Slow. We don't need answers today. We don't need to know how this works. Just be real with each other. No games, no pretending. That's all we need. No lies. It sounded so simple when he said it like that, but it also seemed impossible. Because I had spent so long lying that I didn't even know what it was like to be completely honest anymore. With myself. With him. With anyone. But maybe that's what I needed to learn. Lucas shifted on the bench, angling his body toward me. And then he did something that changed everything. He lifted his hand and placed it on the back of my neck. Not fast. Not urgent. Slow. Intentional. Like he was giving me a chance to pull away if I needed to. But I didn't want to. His hand was warm. Strong. When his fingers touched my skin, a shiver ran through me. It wasn't just want. It was like my body recognizing something true. Like, yeah, this is right. Lucas kept his eyes on mine, his hand resting on the back of my neck, his thumb brushing gently against my skin. We'll figure it out, he said quietly. No pressure. And I believed him. Not because I was sure it would work out. Not because I wasn't scared anymore. But because for the first time in 8 months, I wasn't alone in this. I raised my hand too, a little awkwardly, a little hesitantly, and placed it on his shoulder. Just to feel that he was real. That this was real. And then, without much thought, without planning, I leaned forward. And we hugged. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was just necessary. His arms wrapped around me, firm and secure, and I sank into that hug as if it were the first time I had truly breathed in months. Because maybe it was. We stayed like that for a while. I don't know how long. Long enough to feel his heart beating against my chest. Long enough to realize he was trembling too. It wasn't just me. It had never been just me. When we finally let go, Lucas looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It wasn't his usual confident smile. It wasn't the face of a personal trainer focused on training. It was something softer, more exposed. It was him. Truly. He stood up, extended his hand to help me up too. I accepted. And when we stood up, he didn't let go of my hand right away. He just held it there for a few more seconds. And then he looked at the locked door. Time to go back to the real world, he said. But there was a playful tone in his voice. Do you think we can do it? I laughed. It was a nervous laugh, still full of uncertainty, but it was genuine. I guess we'll have to try. Lucas let go of my hand and walked to the door. I watched as he turned the key, unlocking the latch. The click sounded too loud in the silence. As if it were a symbol, a turning point. Because that door had been locked to force us to face the truth. And now it was being opened because we had chosen not to run from it. Lucas gently pushed the door open, letting the fluorescent light from the hallway stream in. The world outside remained normal. The sound of a shower, someone laughing, the muffled music coming from the reception. Nothing had changed. But for me, everything was different. Lucas looked back, waiting for me. Shall we go? I took a deep breath, adjusted my backpack strap on my shoulder, and walked over to him. As we left the locker room, side by side, I felt the weight I'd been carrying for 8 months begin to lessen. It didn't disappear. I was still scared. I still had doubts. I still had 1,000 unanswered questions about how this would work, what we would tell people, how we would deal with everything. But for the first time, I wasn't carrying it alone. We walked down the hallway in silence, past the reception, stepped out onto the street. The night air was cool, and the city was as noisy and alive as ever. Cars honking, people rushing past, neon signs flashing. Nothing had stopped because of what happened in that locker room. But I had, and I had started anew, differently. Lucas stopped on the sidewalk, looked at me with that half smile I knew so well. Tomorrow, same time, he asked, as if it were just another normal training day. But it wasn't, and we both knew it. I smiled back. Same time. We said goodbye without a hug, without a kiss, just a nod. Simple. Normal. Because we were still us. We were still Rafael and Lucas, gym buddies, training partners. But now we were something else too. Something we were still discovering. And as I walked home that night, hands in my pockets and head full of thoughts, I finally understood one thing. Some weights you carry alone. They are yours. No one can take them from you, but others. Others you can only lift when you have someone there to help you. I had spent 8 months afraid to ask for help, afraid to be honest. Afraid that if I showed who I really was, I would lose everything. But it turns out he had been waiting the whole time, waiting for me to be brave enough to tell the truth. And when I finally did, he didn't run. He stayed. And that made all the difference. I don't know how this story will end. I don't know if we'll work out. I don't know if in 6 months, a year, we'll still be together, or if it will just become a good memory of something that didn't work. But I know one thing. It was worth being honest. It was worth overcoming the fear. It was worth choosing the truth, even when it was easier to keep pretending. Because in the end, it's not about guarantees. It's not about knowing it will work. It's about having the courage to try. And for the first time in my life, I had found someone who was willing to try with me. So, yes, tomorrow, same time. And we would discover together what comes next.